Hey, before we begin, a quick note. The stories on this channel are based on real cases, but the names of the people involved have been changed, and graphic or violent language has been filtered out. With that said, let's open the file. When Paul arrived at his brother's house that afternoon, David was already gone. Someone had called ahead to tell him what happened, but he and his wife Christine still drove out. There was nothing to do, and nowhere else to be. At some point, one of them noticed the Tylenol bottle still sitting on the kitchen counter, exactly where David had left it that morning before he collapsed. Paul had a headache from the drive and from the weight of what they had just been told. He took 2 capsules. Christine took 2 from the same bottle. By the time both of them were admitted to the hospital, the same hospital where David had died that morning, neither of them was going to make it home. This is a real case. Only the names have been changed. In the early fall of 1982, Tylenol was the most trusted over-the-counter pain reliever in the United States. It had been sold under that name since 1955. Hospitals carried it. Pediatricians recommended it. Parents kept it in the medicine cabinet as a matter of course. It was as familiar and unremarkable as anything in a home. Which is exactly why what happened in September of that year was so difficult to process. On the morning of September 29th, a 12-year-old girl we will call Karen Mills woke up at her family's home in the northwest Chicago suburbs with a sore throat and a headache. It was a Tuesday. Her parents gave her 2 Extra Strength Tylenol capsules from the bathroom cabinet and told her to rest. She was found unresponsive a short time later. She was brought by ambulance to a nearby hospital and pronounced unalive that morning. The attending physicians found no explanation. She had been otherwise healthy. There was nothing in the house or in her medical history that accounted for what happened to her. Her parents did not yet know they were not the only family in the city having that conversation. A postal worker we will call David Crane was 27 years old and lived on the northwest side. That same morning, he told his wife he felt unwell. He took 2 extra strength Tylenol capsules from a bottle in the kitchen and sat down. At some point in the next hour, he collapsed. By the time paramedics arrived and transported him to the hospital, he was pronounced unalive. Neither family knew the other. In the space of a single Tuesday morning, 2 people in the same part of the city had passed after taking the same product. No one in either family had any way to connect those 2 facts yet. Then Paul and Christine arrived, and the bottle was still on the counter. By early evening, 3 members of the same family were gone. Over the following day, 4 more people in the greater Chicago area were found unalived under similar circumstances. A woman in her late 20s, a woman in her mid-30s, 2 others. They had no connection to the Crane family. They did not know each other. What they shared was simpler than that. All of them had recently taken extra-strength Tylenol capsules. The bottles came from different pharmacies in different parts of the city. A medical examiner pulled the thread. Toxicology results from 2 of the cases came back identical. Potassium cyanide. When investigators examined bottles from the stores where victims had made their purchases, they found what had been done. The capsules had been opened, carefully, individually, and the contents replaced with cyanide before being resealed. The packaging looked untampered from the outside. There was no visible sign of what was inside. The contamination could only be discovered after someone had already taken the capsules. 7 people were unalived in 72 hours. The company issued a nationwide product recall. 31 million bottles of Tylenol were pulled from shelves across the country. In Chicago, city officials issued public warnings telling residents not to take any Tylenol they had at home. Police drove through affected neighborhoods with loudspeakers. Emergency phone lines were overwhelmed. Stores began pulling products from open shelves before the official recall was announced, as word spread through the city faster than any formal channel. There was no playbook for what to do when the most trusted product in the medicine aisle became the thing you were warning people not to touch. Investigators established that the contaminated bottles had come from at least 4 separate retail locations, different stores, different chains, spread across the northwest corridor of the city. A single tampered bottle at a single store could be explained in many ways. 4 stores, each carrying a contaminated bottle, meant the poison capsules had been distributed deliberately across multiple locations. Someone had planned a route. They had moved through it without being identified. They had finished and walked away. Across the country, the weeks that followed were uneasy. Copycat tampering threats were called in from dozens of states. Halloween in the Chicago metropolitan area was effectively canceled. Parents cleared out their medicine cabinets. Stores moved over-the-counter products behind glass. A kind of collective unease settled into ordinary domestic routines in a way that was difficult to name. The medicine cabinet, the grocery store aisle, the simple act of opening a bottle. 3 days after the first victim was pronounced unalive, a letter arrived at the company's headquarters. The writer demanded $1 million. He signed it with his name. Investigators traced the name to a man in Kansas City. We will call him Raymond Colton. He had a prior record involving fraud and related charges. He was located and arrested, charged with extortion for the letter. He was tried. He was convicted. He was never charged with the poisonings. The FBI led the investigation. Hundreds of agents were involved at its peak. The company accounted for every bottle it had distributed. Every former employee was interviewed. Every store in the contamination cluster was canvassed repeatedly. The investigation ran for years and produced a conviction for extortion and nothing else. No physical evidence placed Colton in Chicago before the poisonings. No witness identified him at any of the 4 locations. No contamination site was ever connected to him. His account, which he maintained through legal proceedings and decades of interviews, was the same each time. He had written the letter after reading about the poisonings in news coverage. He called himself an opportunist. He denied any knowledge of the cyanide before it became public. The investigation was never able to prove otherwise. The packaging changed. In 1983, the FDA introduced mandatory tamper evidence standards for all over-the-counter medications. The foil pull tab under the cap, the shrink wrap banding around the bottleneck, the sealed cotton layer inside. The triple-layer safety design that defines every medicine bottle available today was written in direct response to what happened in Chicago that September. The rules exist because no one had believed they were necessary before. Raymond Colton was released after serving his sentence. He continued to give interviews over the following decades. He maintained his innocence consistently and died in the spring of 2023. No other suspect was ever publicly named or charged. The source of the cyanide was never traced to a supplier or a location. The person who opened those capsules, refilled them, and placed them on shelves across 4 separate stores has never been identified. 7 people, 3 days. The youngest was 12 years old. Her parents had given her the medicine themselves out of a cabinet in the house where she grew up. The case is still open. Most of these cases never close. If you want to sit with the ones that don't, subscribe. There's a new file every few days,